taught in school. And I understand that's what you're doing because that's what you came in here with the defense to do. And you shouldn't just take my word simply because I'm saying it. I will be putting out a movie on this. You should hang out in these channels more often and stick around till that happens. But that's what we're laying down now. Like, you can't. I mean, you can keep going back and defending it, but it's a moot point. If somebody else
I have
wants
a
to jump
question.
in,
I have a question I want to get in. Okay, I mean, this is extraordinary. If the government is, what, 50 years, 100 years ahead of where the public thinks they are in terms of secret technology they're holding back, and only roll it out decades later, but had it all the way back then to forge things.
112 years ago.
Okay, I mean, it's like, I mean, it's an entertaining plot, and but it's sort of unfalsifiable. I mean, if you're going to put the government that far ahead of what the public's understanding of technology is, to the point that no matter how far back in time we go, maybe they secretly were 200 years more advanced than we thought they were and could have faked anything. Like, this does lead to a totally unfalsifiable worldview.
Well, it's pretty plausible.
But thankfully, it's literally provable in the record because the record
Mm.
is still there. The
Well,
patent
why
record
would you
still
even believe
exists.
that? I mean, if anything could be faked, like, why am I even okay? Like, anything could be anything. Anything could be faked. They had AI
Right.
technology 200
What's
years ago.
interesting,
Everything is
right?
synthetic.
What's interesting to me is I
I'm
can
not
point you
saying
to
it's
that.
either.
You can go look at where it's hosted, and then you can say, man, how did all this stuff across this entire realm get hosted in all these different places? Was it the government who did it, or was it some series of events in parallel of people posting all over the place, not knowing what they were about to uncover, 114 years later?
Okay, well, maybe that's fake
That would
too.
be
It's
pretty
like,
stunning. Well, it could be, but man, that would be the biggest fakery. That would be the entire internet that you've based your entire knowledge curriculum essentially off of, including because your schools use it, the government uses it. That's how the data is moving around the country in the first place. The very backbone of your worldview would be built upon this system, which then, in its entirety, if what I'm telling you is fake, would then also be fake.
no, I think you're missing the point of what I made. If what you're saying
No,
is
I mean,
true, and that
yeah.
basically all video feeds for like the last century could have just been like completely doctored by God knows how advanced technology. Like, your claim to have video clips exposing anything about this is equally lost into just the fog of uncertainty. Like, why should I put any credence on what you're showing?
Except because what I show in my videos, you can actually open up on your computer on your end outside of the video and then investigate where these were found. And I mean, literally, you can go to like,
Videos are fake. You're telling me there's no possible
right, but is the knowledge in the video, that I will be putting together, now that would have to be fake too. But the knowledge itself, if you follow it, but if you follow that knowledge, you'll find the sources. You'll even be able to buy books off eBay, which are not mine, independent people that I would have to be the one to upload it, literally, to somehow prove to millions of people that one guy on the earth is somehow this super intellectual guy who can fool everybody, just like the conspiracy you're unwilling to believe that a ton of people could do together, as long as they were able to do it without the public noticing. By the way, I just wanted to say this. If you wanted a really good way to get out of public perception as a secret society and nobody notice, you could pick out a series of friends, line them up on a wall, throw the light spectrum out on the wall, and see how deep into the spectrum each one of your friends could see. And if they could see really deep into the red, further than your other friends, or really deep into the ultraviolet, perhaps even down to what I've read about in some of these journals, which are not part of documented history but are on the public record, they say they can see down to X-ray. That's pretty stunning, because then you'd be able to put out recognition patterns for people of the club, and the modern public would have no idea. Just a thought, just an idea. I'm not saying it really happened, but it is written down as happening. So, yeah.
I mean, I honestly didn't follow a lot
I feel
of
like I'm
that.
getting grilled here, though. I mean, I'm made a lot of big claims. I feel like
hot, to be fair.
I'm getting grilled. Yeah, I wanted to address something you said, Jake, because I felt like you posed a question that I had an answer to, but I don't want to hijack this room. Like, Gio was having a great thing here, and so were other people. And
land on it. Land on it. No, I'm saying, like, I completely understand what you're saying. So if some other people don't understand it, it's not like a one-way thing. There are some people in here that understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, this is
Okay,
all
I'm gonna
fine.
back out.
I guess
I
I guess
didn't want to. Hold on,
I'm
but
making a
I'm gonna
very
back out. Hey, I'm just announcing. I'm gonna back down because I came in here to listen, not necessarily to speak. But yeah, there you go. Thank you much.
yeah, it's fine. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I think I'm just trying to point out that there's kind of like a logical problem here with first telling people that there is an extent of forgery and image and video manipulation that is wildly beyond what they knew to be possible, going way further back in history than they ever would have imagined. But then, but then after that, guaranteeing them that you and a very small group of people have somehow found, preserved, and accurately copy pasted, reproduced the actual videos that expose the existence of this massive forgery. It's like, if this system of conspiracy that you're talking about does exist, then I would never believe that you as an individual would be capable of finding and verifying evidence exposing it. So, it kind of like, I don't know
But
where to go from there.
that just depends if you truly understand how they operate. So everything they do, they have to allow it to be public knowledge, right? You have to know that it's happening, and then the what's it called, the non-doing anything about it, that's accepted as you're giving them permission to do it.
I don't think I have to believe anything about anything in a world in which over 100 years worth of video footage could all be massively forged and doctored to a seeming unlimited extent. I mean, then
Yeah,
who's to
but
say
you
that the
just making
videos
it.
on YouTube
Yeah,
claiming to
but you just
expose this
making
are
it
not
sound.
themselves forgeries and AI synthetic and
Yeah,
like it's
okay,
just an endless
but you
rabbit
have.
hole.
Yeah, but you have one person saying that they're making a film about it. They have supporting evidence. You can look this up, etc. And then you just have people that just say, "Oh, no, that sounds too crazy. It's too outrageous to look into," sort of thing. What's the point in looking into it, sort of thing.
It it's not that it's not what I'm saying is that a specific claim is too outrageous. I'm just saying that it's like um what is the standard for the evaluation of evidence? And it just sort of feels like it's kind of cyclically self-defeating. That
Well,
then
what he's doing, what
there's
he
a
was
paradox
saying is like,
here.
okay, yeah. Like on one hand, you have the narrative saying the technological capabilities at the time were only such and such, and then you have other evidence suggesting that the technologic technological capabilities of the time were far more advanced.
You know the
And
riddle
then
or like the
yeah.
sorry.
Can I just finish? Oh, this. Oh, no, I was going to say is if that were true, then you do understand that it's definitely possible for them to forge videos and all this sort of stuff, like he was mentioning. So if they did have the possibility at the time, like a lot of people think CGI in movies came a lot later, but I forget which Star Wars it is, but they have two dead people playing in the movie, and I mean, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference for the most part.
I feel like this is like the paradox of saying something like this sentence is false. Um, in that, like, if someone's claiming to present evidence to me of a reality in which all possible evidence could be forged beyond any ability of me to independently verify it, then I sort of also can't independently verify the claimed evidence of the exposure of this. Like, there's something
But to be,
fundamentally paradoxical to
mm,
me about being
I
asked
understand that.
to evaluate evidence of the exposure of a scope of technology that could forge any evidence of any kind to just a wild degree. Like, I need some baseline of how I would
Yeah, I
even go
completely
about in
understand
the
that.
first place. Yeah, evaluating if
Was
anything is
he?
true. Yeah.
Yeah. But do you think that you're possibly maybe conflating that? Yes, a large portion of it is heavily faked, and that can be demonstrated to it all being fake, and then there's no way to validate anything. But really, the main starting point, like the baseline that you're talking about, is um, learning the actual narrative of what technology existed at which time, and then going from there. and then finding inconsistencies. I'm not saying it's true.
But
I'm
I
not
don't
saying
want
this
to
is
commit an
enough.
all or nothing
I'm saying
fallacy.
that's a. I'm
So
saying that's a
I can only
baseline.
sort of give my gut reaction to sort of hearing this for the first time without knowing the details, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard this before that like the government had software even more advanced than like Blender back in the 1960s during Apollo. That the government had computer tech that was far beyond what we have now, even in the 60s. It's just I've heard that so many times.
How about the idea that they've had AI for like way longer and that there was a huge reset and they used AI to like basically design this whole current like the history and a lot of the globe stuff, and that's just a total wild speculation theory, but the idea that they literally used AI to build a lot of the sort of paradigm that we're in. But that's like that's even more dramatic idea that they've
Yeah,
had.
but then I think what he was saying though, that it becomes an unfalsifiable claim if they have such power that it was basically they can't leave like even a breadcrumb behind. They can literally make us believe anything about the past, right? Like if they have this massive, powerful AI, we may not even know who our own fucking mother is. Like
No, it's just would be, well, I mean, this is going down another route of like a reset thing. I'm just saying I find it interesting, the whole, just the idea of it. But I mean, if there was a reset and they did some kind of like MK Ultra mind wipe process with like the asylums, and I'm not saying I just have belief in any of that or think that that's all the case or anything. I just think it's interesting in terms of
I,
what the origins may be. And I know that's the whole topic of like resets and stuff, but I'm just saying if in an idea where they've had, these silicon chip technology and stuff, or that it already existed, and then they did some kind, or whoever they are, did some kind of a reset and did some like massive genocide MK Ultra type thing, and then kind of reset us to like the horse and buggy situation, even though a lot of the old architecture was still around, and then sort of slowly rolled out this kind of industrial, quote unquote, scientific revolution with the globe thing that we discovered it's a globe. And then, oh my God, now we're developing computers and microchips. It's really like maybe in the realm of speculation and theory at that point, but I just find some of the ideas interesting, of what
I
could be
think
the case.
maybe to articulate a little more clearly where um, I kind of hidden issue with sort of thinking through all this is that my understanding of the world that we live in is one in which there are competing political actors, in which nations exist in some meaningful sense, even if we don't fully understand the full webbing of alliances and betrayals going on amongst the elite behind the scenes, and where science and technology is progressing internationally, that people in nations, sometimes friendly, sometimes rivals, are working together or spying on each other, um, sometimes co-developing, sometimes hostilely trying to steal valuable discoveries and technology from each other. Sometimes one nation may get a bit ahead, but there's tremendous pressure of others to themselves find and replicate and expose and spy. So, like, it couldn't be just the US in a world where other nations exist that gets 100 years ahead of everybody else on something like AI technology. Like, I think that this line of thinking inevitably leads to a belief that there has already been complete total global governance, that all nations are just puppets.
That's the
100%.
truth.
Well,
For
no,
God knows
because
for
there's
an
a
unknown amount of
peer-reviewed system, which also you have to apply for grants for certain research and development. So these people, if they're putting up their own money, yeah, sure, like you could say Elon Musk is putting up his own money, but he's not really. And all of the research and development you're talking about, it's all based on a paradigm, which is the current paradigm, which is of consensus and peer-reviewed scientific paradigm. So it's still controlled, even
No,
in what you just said.
what I'm saying is that, like, if the world as I see it, where you've got many governments and many private organizations, all in a very complicated web of competition and cooperation on technology, if that is how the world really is, then this idea that the United States alone could have secretly been 60 plus years advance of the rest of the world on AI technology and nobody knew doesn't make any sense to me at all. Like, the only way for me to make sense of this is, like, for a secret that massive to have been kept, it would have needed to have been kept by everybody. Like,
No,
No.
secret clubs.
You're
That's the
right.
whole
No,
point
he's
in having
actually.
a secret
Hold on.
society.
And
No.
it's not just the
no,
Hold
but then
on.
the secret society has to
Zpop's
already be
right.
global. Like,
No, he's right. 100%. It would have to be, it would have to include the international scene. And the thing is I'm pointing back to a history which you're not aware of. It's not the consensus history.
no.
And it does show that we went over to Japan. We went into Toronto. We went to London. I mean, we were in Germany. We were in France. The Hollywood industry was worldwide. It was a worldwide thing. We hear about Hollywood, but we were everywhere. I mean, it's literally called the International Photographer. That's the name of their trade union journal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's like an intellectually honest recognition of what this requires.
Yeah,
That it requires, like,
you're right.
very
It does. And so I can
things.
point to, right, I can point to a journal in 1979. Now, I would have to actually give you this one, but I can point to you a record of it on the official Society of Motion Picture Television Engineers website. I can point you to where you can view the summary of it, but without being a member, you won't be able to view it unless you have a physical copy. I do have that physical copy, by the way. And that physical copy in 1979 identifies that the 4 primary traveling mats in use by Hollywood Industries and in the whole world, and it actually explicitly mentions China in this article, by the way, is the infrared traveling mat, the ultraviolet traveling mat, the sodium process, and blue screen. And that's 1979. I'm not sure if you're aware of all the movie programs that came out by the international governments, like the BBC. You mean this is another thing that isn't known about the consensus, mainstream narrative, is that all of the newsreel people, those were Hollywood back in the day. Paramount. There was Paramount News. There was Warner Brothers News. There was Columbia Broadcasting Service back in the day. All of them have merged. And that did happen in the 50s and the 60s. I have the journals where they literally announced it. The British Broadcasting Company was merged with Warner First National. That's Warner Brothers. It is international. It did happen. It's recorded. That's what we're saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm sorry, I had to speak up because you did bring up what I think was a perfectly fair point. And it did happen.
Okay. And then sort of assuming that that information's accurate, that they did merge in the way, the public records say they did, and the dates that they did, and all right.
And can I just, how you were saying like they would have to all be involved in it, sort of thing? I'll just
Yeah.
give you an example so you can understand. There's 195 recognized countries. So
Mhm.
195, and then if you talk about 8 billion people, you're essentially saying that there's 195 leaders that will make the decisions for 8 billion people. Like, granted, there's all these unions and organizations, but each one of those countries has an individual leader. So it's really easy. Like, if you do some simple maths and you understand what 1% of 8 billion people are, then you understand, right?
Well, I'm not saying I can't imagine it. Like,
okay, yeah.
I'm not saying I can't imagine the idea of a very deep level of kind of puppetry and control and coordination of sort of nations effectively not really being sovereign entities, not really having incentive to, like, spy or expose each other in a
Burgers.
malicious way, because they're all kind of under the control of the same plan. I can certainly imagine that.
Yeah, it's a technocracy before most people would be ready to believe one could have formed. That's what would be required to believe is a technocracy formed much earlier than any of us believed, and then we were all manipulated via the flow of information and the release and distribution of products available to us commercially.
Think about how many times Globers have said they couldn't have faked the moon landing because CGI only existed in such and such, or it was only just starting and the capabilities of it that time were so, poor, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like this illusion, and that's how they get away with it. Like the illusion that we weren't as advanced then, so therefore such and such can't be true because they didn't have the capability to do it back then.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the case.
But I believe without the internet and analog TV, it's extremely easy to fake anything. Especially at the time, if the TV is looked at as something, extraordinary and revolutionary, it's really easy to say, oh, it's on the TV, there's no way it could be fake, sort of thing. Plus, it's in analog black and white.
It does seem like flat Earth requires some pretty intense beliefs in the world around us being a very manufactured place in two different ways. First of all, the lights in the sky not just being balls of matter, but being something completely different than that, put there by clockwork. Like it very often seems like this goes into the idea of like a design, a watchmaker, creator, something of that sort. And then in addition to that, it also seems to require the belief that there is a centralized technocratic ultra coordinated center to all of global power that is very unified in the agenda of covering this up. So both a designed cosmos and then a highly designed deception of that cosmos. So two extreme layers in which design is very central.
Yeah, I mean, it's easily supported when you investigate the narrative properly. With the narrative not, too many inconsistencies in the narrative for what they're claiming. And then, yes, like when you talk about the centralization, I mean, show me one country that doesn't support claims that space agencies are fake, etc. Because they all adhere to the lie. And then when you take Antarctic Treaty, for example, there's no country that's going to challenge that. But I think you were mentioning it maybe before, or maybe it was someone else, with the countries, how we don't understand how sometimes they're friends and sometimes they go to war and spy on each other, etc.
Mhm.
But there are certain things where they all agree on.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Right, you're saying where there's cases where lots of countries that seem to be rivals in other places all agree, you take that as evidence of a mass coordinated lie. And I would take that as evidence of something that's
Well,
probably true. In that if all these different rivals
yeah,
are saying the same thing on something, then it makes sense to me to think like, okay, well then that just might be something real then, because I would imagine them each to be lying about things that are more specific to their self-interest. Um,
because okay, so like the
yeah,
reasoning for their like Antarctic Treaty, for example, is that they need to preserve this space, right? It's so pure and they need to preserve it, because and the justification is, the Earth is precious, we need to protect it. So if that's going to hold true, they're protecting uninhabited land, and then the inhabited land they don't care. They're pillaging it, destroying it, and then there's certain countries that just get unlucky, like get bombed the shit out of, you know. So why would all the countries agree to protect some little ice land with just, polar bears and penguins in it, and for the most part snow, ice, etc. But it's so pure, it's so precious, and they all agree upon this. But then
well,
the
I
inhabited
honestly,
lands they don't care about. Hmm.
I think it's just sort of like a PR thing to do. that will fall apart the moment somebody finds something that they can accessibly extract that is profitable. Like I think I would just say like it seems simple to me to
But
think that they all said something that sounded nice at a time where none of them had any immediate strong material
no,
interest to
but
go
then
mining for something.
yeah, but then this is what I mean about investigating the narrative. So the whole narrative behind that is nobody had really truly, explored or entered certain parts of it. And when they did, they came back and then all of a sudden they were like, quick, we have to protect this place. But they never really explained why. But something happened, and then all of a sudden the Antarctic Treaty, and then not long after the space programs, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm saying. So it's like it's more than just PR, because why would they have this theme behind it? Like you're saying, like
I don't
what's his name, Admiral Byrd or whatever, went there, and then they were like, "Oh, quick, this is a way to," like
yeah, I don't know much about the history of the treaty at all.
well, it's all around the
Uh,
same time. And then what I was mentioning before, like when you investigate the narrative, if you go into the side of Tartaria, which is resets and all that sort of stuff, you'll find a common theme. Like everything is around the 1800s, 1700s, and then the capabilities of the time to build these structures, we don't see any evidence of that. I mean, even if you said, okay, people on horse and buggy, they could have potentially built it. There's no explanation of where all these horses were kept, how they were feeding him. There's so many levels to it. Like the agriculture needed to feed these horses, the stables, etc. Power tools hadn't been invented, such and such.
horses on. Sorry, wait. These are horses in Antarctica.
No, I
Like
was specifically talking about like Tartaria and all that sort of thing. Like where, yeah, if you haven't looked into that, then it's more architectural based arguments,
Okay.
like massive buildings, massive structures, etc., all that are claimed to have been built around the same time, and that the capabilities of the time, when you like as far as tools go and manpower, labor, etc., they just don't add up.
And sorry, where was this? Where was this? This buildup of all
all,
these.
all over the world,
Okay.
all over the world. So the entire world at the same time. But it all
Sorry,
like
I thought we
okay,
were
so radio
like
wave,
Antarctic,
yeah.
like cities or
So
bases. I thought we were talking about that.
well,
Sorry.
it's related.
Yeah.
It's related. It's related because it's all in the same current timeline, 200 years. The current timeline, which is like World War One, Industrial Revolution, telephones invented, light globes invented, radio waves were invented,
Yeah.
all around the same time. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's the current thing we live on. I mean, me and you are communicating right now on undersea cables, which were all laid again in 1700s. Obviously, discovery of fiber optics, etc., and then they have new ones, but the foundations were laid before telegram. Apparently.
Are you saying there's something historically unexplained about how this technology
Okay,
occurred?
like, all right, so like, say 100%. I have one hammer, one axe, one saw, and then I show you a building and I say, yeah, me and my two friends built this. And then you say, wow, that's amazing. Two of you just only built that by yourself. How long did it take? And I say, oh, it's 3 months. It's just like, you don't necessarily have to say, all right, this is proof you didn't do it. But there's a big red flag waving and an alarm going off saying, well, I haven't never seen this done before. And the example is what we're comparing is that they can't replicate this now with cranes and all sorts of machinery. They can't replicate it now, but they did these things in amazing small amounts of time again before the automobile had been invented.
Sorry, built what
So
types of structures? In just trying to follow.
well, cathedrals, castles, the World's Fairs, any major building you pick, like Australia, if you take Australia, look up the Queen Victoria building. Look up any. So basically, any building in the world that's claimed to have been built in the 1800s, 1700s, or earlier. Have a look at the architecture and have a look at the intricacy of the structures, and then compare them to today's standards with, like, we're talking about 200 years advancement in tools, more manpower, etc.
Okay.
Hmm.
Sorry. So is the claim that there's a lost technology or a missing technology from the
It's
historical
inherited.
record?
So it's inherited. So your leaders, everybody all the world's leaders now, and what do they call it? Like military industrial complex and all that sort of stuff. Everything, like the whole narrative is built upon a lie.
Sorry,
There's an
and what's the
exchange, a
lie?
handover.
From
Well,
who?
I don't
you-
know what the.
Did you ask him if he's ever heard of a star fort?
No, I didn't. I didn't bring up
I've heard of a
Starport.
starport. Wait, I'm trying to understand. So I've heard of
Mm.
certainly lots of people speculate about like the ziggurats and the pyramids and stuff like that, and said like, oh, or Stonehenge, and said like, oh, it doesn't make sense that people at that era would have been able to construct
Yeah,
those things. Are you saying something
yeah, but
similar, but for large
mm,
buildings built around the world in the 1800s? That there's a
well,
missing explanation as to how society
yes, it's
constructed
not.
lots of things?
It's extremely unlikely that it was humanly possible at the time to build these things in the short time frame that they claim to have built them. So there's a falsification of the narrative, whether it's completely made up or not, but it's just gish gallop, hosh posh everywhere. Like this building was erected in 17 such and such. It was built within 2 years and 6 months. It was commissioned by etc. etc. And they don't explain why they built the building in the first place.
Okay,
I
I
mean,
mean,
if
so
yeah,
I'm not trying to like put words on you. I'm
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
genuinely trying to understand. Is this like instead of like the ancient aliens built the pyramids things, this is like 1800s
Well,
Victorian
okay. Do you
aliens built?
accept? Yeah. Do you accept that in the current narrative, like a current worldview, they still can't explain how they built the pyramids? Like many archaeologists and historians speculate, but there's no one definitive answer, right? Do you agree on that?
That's my awareness. I'm not an expert in this at all, but my awareness is that there's still debates about details of how the pyramids were built.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is much earlier. So they still don't have an answer for something much earlier, which is the way you should be looking at it is they're alleging that this is a more primitive time. Like for the most part, it's supposed to be a primitive time. Like they don't have power tools, they don't have technology, they don't have electricity, etc.
Right.
Yeah, but then when you get to 1800s and very like late 17s, so 1770. I mean, take America, take Australia when it was apparently founded, right? 1770s, etc. It's all around the same time. Now all of a sudden they have an answer for everything. They can tell you when it was built, how it was built, etc. But the problem is the technological capabilities of the time don't match. So it's like
Okay.
saying like how the same
I
way
just
they
posted
say,
a picture
okay,
of the
well,
Queen's
what's
building,
that?
the one you mentioned. I posted a picture of the building you mentioned.
Oh, in where? Oh, yeah, in the live text. I always go to the chat one,
Queen's
the VC
Victoria
chat one.
building. Okay.
Yeah, so you see that building?
Yeah.
That's built by convicts.
Okay.
Like within the first 50 years of first like landing on Australia.
Yeah, that definitely.
All right.
I've been to that building. That definitely doesn't match the time it was
I mean,
built.
most people exactly. Most people don't know how ridiculous the actual narrative of Australia's foundation actually is because they obviously, again, it's a big lie about the narrative and, you know, Captain Cook came here, took over the country and convicts and all that sort of stuff. But these buildings, okay, all right. Within 50 years, and this is by their own narrative, within 50 years of the first landing, all major cities, apart from the ACT, so all the capital cities, had all been established. not just the cities, the railways, the waterways, etc. Buildings like that were all built within the first 50 years by convicts that they brought from England. At the time, were probably stealing bread, I guess. So they're just peasants.
Okay. I mean, I
But
do
you
feel
have,
like you can do a
yeah,
lot with forced labor.
yes, but you have to have an architect, and you have to have craftsmanship. Like, and this is what I mean by today's standards. Like, so if you take one house, in order to have, you have different qualities of house, right? But it's based on the craftsmanship of the workers and their skills and knowledge based on like years of studying and practicing. Like even something simple as bricklaying. Yeah, anybody can lay a brick. It's very easy. But how well you can build, and how clean those lines are and stuff is based on years of skills, practice.
Yeah, I would imagine that there were professionals in the colonial government overseeing
But
a
you,
labor force of convicts.
yeah,
I don't really know much about the
okay,
history of the founding of Australia.
yeah. You know the picture that you posted, the building.
Yeah.
Like you can use it for contrast. Like you can see the height of the building compared to the people.
Mhm.
The intricacy and the beautiful. They're doing
Yeah,
this
yeah.
with horts and carts and ropes and pulleys and no power tools.
Okay.
The building's still standing today. And there's no other building, like there's no buildings of that quality now. They don't get made. They build square. It's called brutalism. The architecture now. That's what they call it, brutalism. Because it's just square and it's very easy to do. Of course, there's a lot involved, engineering and stuff, but
Okay.
I'm saying, yeah.
And I'm trying to understand how this, and then this connects back to, it was around this time that the world government signed the Antarctica Treaty, and
Well,
at
that
that
was
time
in
became significant.
19. Yeah, So the same people that have got have been part of the narrative, the lie, are the same. It's the same bloodlines and the same royal families and secret societies that have all been orchestrating this one lie. So it's all founded on a lie. Is what I'm trying to say. Like the
It feels like
original lie is that.
it's lies.
That
Okay, so if I may jump to kind of where I feel like this is going, if things down to this type of masonry and construction technology are not accounted for in the historical record, where are you saying that the capability of building structures like this comes from?
Well, that's the point. Is it appears to be inherited, and then a false narrative is slapped on top. But I don't know where
Inherited
it came from.
too.
I can't. The current leaders, the world leaders, and the royal families that took over at the time, whether that was by force or it's handed over or whatnot. But we're currently living in it's a false narrative paradigm. It's false because there wasn't. So these things are attributed to industrial revolution and all that sort of stuff, our major capabilities, but they were handed over. Like radio waves claimed to be found at the same time, but they knew about these things long before that.
How?
Well, it's based on your, how much you want to take the, the subject and then look into it and then base your.
I would like to know. Yes.
Yeah. But you have to spend I would say a few years. You have to delve into it. You go
I mean, is it
so many.
aliens? Like, I mean, like, is there who gave us Stonehenge and the Queen's Victoria building in Australia and radio waves and AI and stuff? I mean, like, this does feel like it's leading to a punchline of it was a non-human source of intelligence that handed down to the
Well,
elites
I'm
of the
definitely
world
not
to keep
saying
in
that.
secret. Well, but
Yeah,
then what? Like,
well, that's what I mean. I'm not claiming to know. I have no idea. What I'm pointing out is remember what I said at the beginning, like the baseline is you investigate the narrative, and then when you start to find inconsistencies, which seem like something here is fishy, that's what leads you to look further into it. Not it's not you can't just go straight to the answer and prove exactly who did it and why they did it.
Okay, it
Like,
seems
okay,
like
you
what you're saying is that
you
elites
you
have been
googled
harboring in secret technological and scientific capabilities with a huge lead time on the public ever knowing about these technologies or whatever, that the elites were already harboring lots of technologies and abilities that they got not through the mainstream story of human development and industrialization and experimentation, but that you keep saying inherited from what sounds like is a non-human source of intelligence that handed over a lot of secrets of technology to the
well,
people in power.
it could have been humans who understood how to use certain technology that other humans don't. Like, I mean, for somebody who's never driven a manual car, you know, for example, like the spark plug leads are unplugged. Okay, that you give them a manual car and you tell them figure out how to start it and get it going. I mean, someone may have the capability to figure this out after, like, you know, a certain amount of time, but when we're talking about with no knowledge at all, it's an extremely hard task to do.
Okay, if it's not
So
non-human, then at the
yeah,
very least, it sounds like there has to have been a very advanced past civilization that all knowledge has
correct.
been scrubbed of.
Yep.
Tell them about the giant
Yep.
trees, no trees on flat Earth.
Yeah. Well, you have to look into that. Yeah, the giant trees stuff. And, yeah, World's Fairs, like he mentioned before, Starfort. You got to look into the old castles.
I wonder, have you seen No Forest on flat Earth?
I can't say I have. I've seen lots of photos and what the trees in that as well. About those, you know, what they claim are rock, right? Chop down trees. But no, is that on YouTube? No forest on flat Earth.
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
What's it called? Let me try to find it.
I'll see if I can find a link and put it in live stream text.
No forest on flat Earth.
I mean, it does sound like that at the very least. Okay, even if I don't say that this has to go to like an aliens or a supernatural thing, at a minimum, what you're saying is that there's something like an ancient lost civilization that got God knows how advanced in their technology. All record of them has been scrubbed, except the global elite do know about them, did inherit these technologies, and that basically the last several hundred years of what has looked like organic human development, experimentation, industrialization, discoveries has all been forged. That over the last couple hundred years, nobody really did in our present world invent radio technology or computers or anything like that. All of these things already were existing in storage from who knows how far back into the past, under lock and key of the elites until they decided it was time to let it spread back out into the public. But that, like, there hasn't actually been
Yeah.
new technologies discovered or invented by any person who's been alive in the last couple hundred years, that all of this stuff pre-existed and was just in a vault and then released in phases
what
according to some
exposition is?
giant plan.
Exposition. Yeah. Do you know what
I
an
think you're cutting
exposition
out a
is?
bit.
Like, say it's for like farm equipment.
I'm sorry, signal's cutting out badly. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Now. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's a bit better.
No.
Sorry, in and
Oh,
out.
yeah. Well, it cut out. Sorry, just no. Do you know what an exposition is?
Am I cutting out for people? Is it just on my end that maybe I could leave and come back, or can people hear me? Okay.
No, it's me. It's me. No, it's
Mm,
me.
No,
It's
he's
gonna be
breaking up.
me. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he's breaking up.
sorry about that.
The technology is purposely planned to be choppy from these
I
highly
guess so.
advanced. That was just programmed. Just joking. Yeah, no, I mean, I was, I mean, what you just said there is, I mean, I guess that's a whole nother description of how we got to this point now, like what you were just kind of running through.
I
Easy.
do. It does seem to me like um, flat Earth leads to these other beliefs pretty organically. Um, in order to explain how both almost all mainstream information about science and technology could be a lie, and also the most powerful elites do somehow have the technological capability of pulling off vast forgeries of all sorts of types and scopes. Like, yeah, this does seem very logical that does lead you to this idea of ancient inheritance from some source of with knowledge and technology. Um, I've before said that I thought flat Earth was inherently theistic, but maybe it's not inherently theistic in the sense of believing in like a god, but I do feel like it's inherently um, of a type of belief that thinks that the ancients or something did have great truths that have been suppressed by the modern world in some way.
Well, it seems like the globe Earth paradigm
I don't
has
know.
this.
Still cutting
Oh,
out a bit.
yeah, try again, maybe. You were breaking up still, though. Well, I'll just say what I was going to say real quick, and then if you want to try again in a second. Well, just like what you're saying there. So on the other side of it, of the kind of paradigm we're in, we have like, well, there's like the Big Bang, evolution, you know, 2000 years ago when the timeline apparently was reset and changed to today to year zero and whatever's going on with that. We have these like obviously the Abrahamic religions that claim to be kind of formed around that time and the history that's claimed to have happened at that time and the whole kind of Greco-Roman history and then the globe claimed discovery that we're on a globe and then and then the whole kind of unfolding from there, which I guess very slowly over the kind of 1500, 16, 17, and then up into today, and then claiming that, we somehow kind of caught our stride as humanity, where we all of a sudden figured out how to do all this stuff with radio waves and electromagnetic radiation and electricity and all this stuff, and then the world wars and everything that kind of led to today. So just with that, just being like sort of a very general outline of the history we're told to be the case, and that goes with the globe. And so what you were just saying there, like you were linking it to flat Earth, and I suppose it could be said that from just that simple thing of the Earth not being a globe, like, do you agree that it, at the very minimum, it would open up a lot of different possibilities? Because if it's not that exact, globe evolution story, then what is it? And if it's not the globe, and they didn't really discover that we were actually on a globe, but the ancients were correct that we're on a stationary plane, and all of that, you know what I mean? It does seem to potentially open up a lot of doors into like, okay, what is the case? What are our real origins? What is the origin of this technology? And how do we get to where we're at now? So I think the way you were laying that out,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
these ideas seem to go hand in hand with each other very clearly. Like, okay, if modern governments and institutions are not to be trusted in any way about what the shape of the earth is, and ancient beliefs that the earth was flat are more trustworthy, then that sort of that's a very symbiotic belief with the other belief, which is that ancient civilizations may have been so knowledgeable or wise that they actually had very advanced capabilities and technologies and ways of manipulating the world and manipulating matter and imagery and all sorts of stuff that has been scrubbed from history. I guess, like, it, it could be, the global elite keeping under lock and key today the existence of all these pre-existing technologies, use those pre-existing technologies to effectively erase these ancient, wise, hyper advanced societies from the historical record. The ones who knew the truth, right? Um, Right. So what I'm imagining now is, like, there was this ancient advanced civilization that did know the truth that the earth was flat, that was the one to discover and invent all this stuff. And the global elite of today have basically stolen all of that and used all of that to erase the history of this ancient civilization, and used all of that to create a complete deception of what the nature of the world is. Yeah, I mean, like, narratively, that's all very coherent.
Do you, can you hear me a bit better now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was asking you before. Sorry about cutting out. I know it's annoying when people cut out. No, I was saying, do you know what an exposition is? So, like, they could do it for like, yeah, they could do it for like farming equipment or power tools or whatever. You go there, it's like a big warehouse, and it's like all the latest advancements in the field, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So if you look up the Chicago World's Fair, Columbian World Exposition, they had many World's Fairs, but the Chicago one's the most famous, I guess. But when you were talking about the handover, that's what the handover is. So, like, they're going there and they're just, it's an exposition. It's a display of all the latest things that they've been handed over. But yeah, if you look up Chicago's World Fair right now, Chicago World's Fair, 1856 or something like that. And I can share it if you want. But
Sure. Yeah.
I just want, well, okay. Fair site. So you would have to look at pictures of it as well to take it into context. But it's 690 acres. So do you know how big 1 acre is?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it featured the massive site featured nearly 200 deliberate temporary buildings. So
Okay.
it's a fair. It's a fair that run. Yeah, yeah. It's a fair that runs for like I think 6 months.
Mhm.
And then they knock everything down.
Yeah.
I think 1 building remains. It operated over 2 summer-fall seasons during the Great Depression. Oh no, this is a different one. A Century of Progressive International Exposition. Sorry, I was reading the wrong one. But this is 1893, October 30th, 1893. It celebrated the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's arrival in the New World, right? The New World. See? It was known as the White. It was known as the White City. It featured the world's first original Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
And I think the travelator, like, you stand on it, it like travels for you, kind of like an escalator sort of thing.
And right, and you feel like it's implausible that these technologies were just being invented by people around that time.
Yeah, so I need you to Google it and just look at the pictures.
Okay. I can. Okay.
Just type in.
Do that.
Yeah, I could share them. It's just like easier than me like clicking download and then posting screenshot. You know what I mean?
Sure. What year? 1893. 1933.
Yeah, 1893. 1893.
Okay.
So just have a quick look through the pictures on images. Just have a quick idea of the sheer size and
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of this, everything you see in these pictures was dirt, right? And within 2 years, they built all of that, only to knock it down after 6 months.
Seems wasteful.
Is that correct? So it's not telling you like, oh, this is like, 100% proof, but this is what I was specifically talking about when I say when you study the narrative and then you look for things that just seem ridiculous and don't make sense, and then you just go further from there, because we don't do this now. Like, do you see the waterway, the water, the river and stuff?
Mhm.
This is part of the construction, man. The building around this and everything, and then now look at the people in the picture. This is like Victorian era looking people. And what are they all doing there? They're just passing through. Just passing through. I mean, they're all just looking at the latest things that they don't even know where they came from, these people. That's what it looks like. They're trying to figure out where the hell are we?
Well, at the World Fair, which
Yeah.
see some stuff that was advertised to draw in the crowds.
People came from all over the world for this.
Yeah.
Does it seem, but surely it seems a bit weird to you that they would build it and the sheer size is all built within 2 years and then they just knock it down after 6 months?
I don't know. I'm not sure why that is so weird.
Okay, take like something like the Golden Gate Bridge, and like imagine they just said, "Oh, we built it for 2 years and then knocked it down." It was just so people could walk over the river for an event.
But that is a major artery of transport and commerce. I mean, this was a festival, and I doubt that most of the structures were built to last long term. I imagine people got out of it what they wanted. I don't know. I don't know what the if people were selling stuff, if it was
Well,
like a major U.S. Kind of flex.
well, they had them all over the world. They had them all over the world. So you have the Paris World Fair. You have one in Sydney. It was a common thing, the World's Fairs.
I mean, maybe
But
they
you
were
don't see
They
them.
had incubators.
sales.
They were showing incubator babies. They actually even had like mini zoos where they had African people in the zoos displaying them just like an animal.
Well, that's not good.
Like you said, the incubators, so you could go there. I think it was like a fair thing, like a show bag. I think you could purchase babies there. And then you have the orphan trains. That's it's all around the same time. This is the point. These massive, massive trains of
the
children being shipped around the world to repopulate.
The best is to watch the documentary on it
Yeah.
when you got
Oh,
time.
did you? Yeah. Like.
Yeah, it'll blow you away when you watch the documentary on it. It goes for an hour and a half. Just it's worth watching. Gene Wilder narrates it. It'll just blow you away, the stuff that was there.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You really got to watch the documentary on it, because it is just
What's the documentary
mind
called?
blowing. What's that?
What's the documentary called?
Chicago World Fair. White City, I think it was called White City.
There's so many of them now. I'm not saying there's thousands and thousands, but there's definitely a lot of people who have made documentaries on this. And not just the Chicago's World Fair. I mean, you have the Crystal Palace that was in England. This is we're talking large amounts of glass. And then when I was trying to say to you about the capabilities at the time, if you take the Crystal Palace, for example, all you got to pair that with is commercial glass production at the time. And they'll tell you when it became popular, they'll show you how far away the nearest glass production factory was from the Crystal Palace in order for them to get it there. Again, they're doing this on horse and car.
And what about the special pavement lighting they have in front of like buildings where there's stories under the ground, and the only way you can let the light in is to have this special like a prism, like a footpath lighting to let the light in, right? And if you actually go down into the basement there, you'll see there's doors and windows going into nowhere.
Mm-hmm. That's like when they talk about the actual flood that happened and the buried buildings, right? When they go to excavate to build and they find that there's windows beneath the dirt. And then again, why would you have a window which goes just to nothing, which dirt, right?
Yeah, but
I
that's
don't
the
know.
mud flood. That's a different thing again. Don't overdo it.
When you find pictures of like construction of that Queen Victoria building, they built the outside walls rather than the floors. That's just not possible. No one builds
Yeah.
the outside walls without the floors.
Exactly. You're not allowed to. I mean, now, even for a simple house, the first thing you have to do is lay the block. You have to have the block approved. It has to be approved, you know. I mean, obviously you can go out into the bush and build your own little thing, but construction standards.
That's why there's a lot of buildings that have cornerstones on them saying founded in 1829 or whatever. Why didn't they say it was built in 1829?
But it's literally the word, right? Like founded. Just
You
put
know what the
found.
story?
Don't add
Do
the.
you know what the
Yeah.
storyline is? That what excuse
What?
they come up with? They say that the founded doesn't actually relate to the building. It's maybe the foundation or the organization was founded in that. That's their narrative for that.
That's crazy.
They like the building could have been built, but the founded means that the organization was founded in that time, which doesn't make any sense.
And I do always try to tell people why they're related, why I believe they're related, flat earth, Tartaria, etc. It's all the same because the actual narrative of the founding of Australia, for example, is that Captain Cook was commissioned to go to Tahiti to view Venus for parallax. And that's how he found the east coast of Australia, because on his journey home. But he was originally going there to support the heliocentric model sort of thing. And it's all paired together. And that's what I'm saying. Within 50 years, all the major cities had been established as well. So that Queen Victoria building, that's just one example of the buildings that, apparently existed. And then we also pair this, they have alleged, real photos of the houses at the time that the people were building to live in, which are just, logs and shit. But yet they're building all these materials, stones, and they go into real detail. They tell you how many stonemasons were on the ship, how many bricklayers and etc. were on the ship. And then the first ship that arrived, they forgot all the tools, so they had to wait like another 3 months or whatever it was for the next ship to arrive. And then from there, they just started knocking down the trees. I don't know how, with axes or whatever, and then just laying the foundation and building all these waterways and railways, windmills and everything.
New Zealand's even worse. When they got here, the whole country was just all forest, and there were no native, like there were no cows, no sheep, no pigs, no rabbits, no food. So they had to bring all of that food from England, right, and start like agriculture, because like the native population had zero agriculture. The way that they fed themselves, they would light a fire at one side of the forest. The birds would get out of the forest and someone would be standing on the other side just picking them off the ground, because they were all like lungs were full of smoke, and that's what happened. And then all these buildings, suddenly they all pop up out of nowhere with no glass industry, no brick industry, no lime production to make concrete or anything like that. It's just popped out of nowhere. And it was like 6 months traveling most of the time. Half of the time their ships actually sunk on the way here, and they all got scurvy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
and that's the other thing I want. That's the other thing I want to put into context, which is the same point that when people talk about, oh, everyone would have to be in the lie, and it would have to be a big lie, and they're all conspiring. Most people don't look this far back into history, so they don't have to worry about people investigating it in the first place. It's all just accepted. You know, the narrative is accepted, but when you look at it, it's just ridiculous. But
Well, it does still require all governments of the world to be in on something, because if you're saying that there was this rapid development of buildings and industry and cities, like I assume you're not just talking about Australia, you're talking about a lot of
yeah,
things happening around the world at that time.
yeah, no. So the actual point of it
Worldwide.
is that they weren't built rapidly. They were already there, and the narrative is slapped on top, which clearly is not possible for the time.
Oh, the buildings in Australia specifically.
No,
Yeah, well,
worldwide.
some people in Australia, some people found a book because there was a French captain sailed into Sydney Harbour in 1820, and he sent letters back to France to his cousin saying that he couldn't believe how built out Sydney was, and we were only supposed to have been there since 1788. And in 1788, we had 5 ships rock up with 150 convicts.
Mhm.
How do you do anything in like even that shorter period? I mean, it's possible, but there was no stock, there was no horses, there was
Sorry, I
there
thought
might have been camel, but in the
Camel
book,
was brought in.
that's debatable because I looked at the
Yeah,
Umberto Monti
map.
Monti map, right?
Yeah,
And
with
on
camel.
that map, it's got it's got this does your head in. It's got camels on it and rabbits, and that was
Yeah,
in
exactly.
1580.
I've seen a map of Australia has a giant inland ocean.
Mm.
Yeah, well, Lake Eyre is 15 meters below sea level, so there is that theory that it was an inland sea, and I basically. Yeah, I can tell you it was an inland sea at one stage because I've got this theory with the whole of Australia literally went down and came back up. And I live here
And have you ever?
in Western Australia.
Was Australia specifically the heart of an ancient advanced civilization?
There
Well,
is a
we're the
bloke
lucky
in
country.
there
Yeah,
is a
sorry.
there is a bloke in Australia, Rex Gilroy. He's written books about it. He says that there was a white Caucasian race that lived in Australia alongside the Aborigines, right? And he calls them the Uru. He's written books about it. He's found stones with writing. He's found pictographs. I mean, they've even found Egyptian hieroglyphs in Gosford, which is north of Sydney. He's found also Egyptian hieroglyphs, Carthaginian hieroglyphs, and what's the other one? Phoenician hieroglyphs. And he's written a heap of books about Australia. And he's just a school teacher, but he can't get the university to study any of this. Like, they won't even look at it. He's been doing it for like all his life. His father started doing it, and he's been doing it for like 50 years, sort of thing. There's a lot of anomalies. He's found mud fossils, like skulls, all sorts of stuff. I actually bought 2 of his books. I've read one of them about the Uru, and they were a white Caucasian race. The actual Aborigines have a oral history of them. They called them the cultural heroes, which they said they actually showed them and taught them things, but they never interacted with them. And I don't think the Aborigines have been here for 40,000 years. It's, a load of rubbish, I think. But
Yeah, no.
yep.
I don't know if you've looked into that side of things where, it's nothing against Aboriginal people, but they look very similar to a certain area of India, right? Indians. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's
they
hard to
look
tell the difference. Yeah.
they
Even
look
even
exactly like 'em.
yeah, even Aboriginals here, they admit they're like, sometimes I see an Indian and I can't tell if he's fucking black fella or Indian, especially once they
But
dress the same and shit. It's really hard to tell the difference.
yeah,
They
especially when
look
you look.
don't they look a little bit like people from Papua New Guinea?
That's different regions
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, but
Nah,
they look like there's a tribe, a group of ethnic people in India, sort of down. I think it's down where Bangladesh is or somewhere, and they look very similar to that. Especially when you look at the Aborigines back, like in the 1920s, and you can watch, like newsreels about them, and people have studied them back then. Aborigines back then look completely different. They're skinny, they're fit. They look completely different to the Aborigines today. The Aborigines today are like sick as a dog. They literally look sick, most of them. It's yeah.
you still have full blood, full blood playing Aboriginals. They more out still in the bush and up in the desert region. I mean, so you have different, different whatever you want.
Are you in the
Yeah,
But
middle of
ones
the
that
outback,
more like
man?
full blood and
I, I don't know if
amazing.
you're in the middle of the outback or under the ocean.
Nah.
This has all
Yeah,
been
yeah.
very
But
interesting.
ones in like the cities and stuff. That's
It's all been very interesting, and I'll try to check out that documentary. I think I gotta go sleep in a sec. I was just curious of are there any other buildings outside of Australia that also fit
Star
this?
forts. Check out
What?
star forts. I bet you didn't even know what a star fort was. Like I
I know
didn't
what
even know what I was
in
never taught star forts at school.
No, I know
Have you
what
Yes,
heard of a
yeah,
star fort?
well, that's one of the arguments for this is that they're all over the world. Yeah, it's
They
in like
are. You just go on. Oh, sorry. You just go on starforts.org, right, and download the file for Google Earth.
Mhm.
And a bloke put up that file, and there's about nearly 1,000 star forts on that file. And punch it
Okay,
into
but
Google Earth, and it will show you all of star forts all over the globe.
no, and I do know what star forts are. Sorry, I was curious if it was any in particular or just generally. And also, is the claim being made here that star forts were built with hidden technology, or that they already existed, that they are repurposed ruins of something that dates back before any
both.
modern?
Both.
Just
It's both. They were
there,
built before and they were built with technology that we don't have.
there,
Okay,
some of
so
them
there
are
were, so like during like the time of the Romans and stuff, like there were star forts sitting around overgrown just throughout Europe.
oh, there's hundreds in Europe. Yeah,
Well, when
like
you
hundreds.
and when you're asking about other countries, you look at a lot of buildings that exist in America, which are Roman themed, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But yeah,
Sorry,
you
what?
can look into cathedrals as well. Definitely look into cathedrals.
I mean,
So how old
there's
do
a
you
star
think
fort.
the star
Well, they're
forts
supposed to
are?
go back to the 1500s around there.
Right, but you're saying that they pre-exist that.
Uh,
Like, how ancient are they?
yeah, it depends on where it is. Some of them are just earthen structures, like earthen structures. They're just like some of them are like in America. You go out to in Florida, out to the one out at the end of the Florida Keys, sitting out in the middle of nowhere. That was built. Well, it's built out of red brick, and there was something like 30 million bricks put out there in the middle of nowhere.
Some
Okay.
say the what do you
And
call it? Statue of Liberty is built on the corner of one.
There's a
Well,
there's a
there is
good There's a good
No,
one
there
in.
is It is, but I'm curious. Like, you're saying that these star forts were not built when it's claimed that they were built, that they are much more ancient. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, some of them.
claim to have been designed in the 50s. Yeah,
There's a
sorry.
good one in near Amsterdam, Alkmaar. It's a double star fort with a cathedral on it. And if you
I'm
look
just
at
thinking,
They claim to be
if you look at
designed
the
in the 15th
cathedral,
century in Italy.
it's
Right,
all,
but
had
how
all
old do you think they are?
add-ons which don't make any sense.
So if they weren't designed in the 1500s and built over the last couple hundred years, do you have any sense of how old they might be?
Oh, no one would know. There's a lot of there's no real records of them, and they've sort of hidden a lot of the records because they changed the names.
Okay.
There's one in Canada up in like King Sound. If you look up there, it's called what's it called now? King William Fort or something. And I actually got a book that's in the late 1700s, and I was just flicking through it, and it's actually not called that in that book. It's called something else.
Mhm.
And that actual structure is out in the middle of nowhere, right? There's no records of it. There's no record of any military personnel staying there. There is a bloke on YouTube did a sort of a deep dive onto it. There's only ever been people there in the summertime. You can't stay there in the wintertime because it's like freezing cold. It's out in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing
Do
else
you think it
around
could
from
be
it.
as old as the pyramids?
No, the pyramids are separate. Don't even want to start on the pyramids. The
Yeah, do
pyramid
you know
is
that
a
there's
calendar.
pyramids all over the world? It's not just pyramids in Egypt too, either.
Oh yeah,
That's what I was about to say.
No, I meant the Egyptian pyramids. I guess
yeah.
I'm not sure what to make of this. Like, is there any estimation on how old these things could be? Like, what is the story here of where they came from?
The problem is that artillery superseded them. When you have artillery, it was pointless to build a fort. And then you go like, why did they build the fort? Well, okay, don't know.
But hold on,
Some of
in
them,
their narrative, they claim that they claim that the star forts evolved as places to defend against after gunpowder and all that sort of stuff. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, because artillery, a fortification is pointless with artillery because you can just walk up to it and hammer it for the next 2 years. So it had to be built at a time that you were just fighting like people with sticks and stones. Or the other one is that they weren't actually built for fortifications against people. They were built for fortifications against animals.
Okay.
This is all speculation. Don't. Yeah.
And some say they weren't built in the practical way. They were built in a way of using some type of a life force, like a cymatic style energy, and then they were formed out of the ground, and
That's why I
then they were
brought up
used.
the
Well,
pyramids at
there's
Stonehenge, because this sounds very similar to what I've heard people say about those, which is why I asked, does that mean the star forts could be as old as Stonehenge, could be as old as the pyramids?
I don't
The
think they're
thing
as
is,
old as them because they go back
they were just
4,000.
guessing, right? Because like the point in the conversation is not that like any claims of when they were built and how. It's like this was never in the narrative when you went to school, right? And they've got a big story for everything, but the story doesn't match. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, just the story of when these things were built doesn't add up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's things that were built. If you go onto this that file and punch onto Google Earth, there's a earthen wall up in central Russia. You'll see it on the map. I can't remember exactly where it is. That goes for 200 miles, and it's an earthen wall about 8 to 10 foot high, and it's got little protrusions along it as you go. You sit down and explain it. There is an explanation for it. They reckon one king built it to keep out, I don't know, someone in that area, like the Mongols or whatever. But it doesn't make any sense at all. And there's
There's
star forts
also
along that.
there's also a Great Wall of Pakistan. I bet no one knew about the Great Wall of Pakistan, just like the Great Wall of China.
I guess I have to ask: is there any part of history that isn't a lie?
Not past 200 years. Like, well, yeah. The only things you can really personally validate is up to around 200 years, because anything from there you can't really do it. And even now with the 200 years, for example, like, you know, how many generations of your own family's history do you have? Probably 2 or 3 at the most. You know, you don't even know who your great grandfather is, because you're never going to know that. There's no
Sorry,
record.
were you saying that
Well,
the
If
Sorry,
you
go
go to the Umberto Monti map, right, and I was looking at it because the only continent or place that is not listed as on there is Australia, but he has Australia as a continent, but he doesn't call it. It's not called Australia. It's called Brasilia, and it has to be Australia because it sits under Indonesia, and the Tropic of Capricorn runs through it. So it's obviously Australia. And as I said, there's camels on there and there's rabbits. That's what did my head in when I looked at it. There's rabbits. But you can go up into Anatolia. He actually has the Noah's Ark on there. It's actually sitting on there, Noah's Ark, in the map.
Mm.
And North Africa is Atlantis, which actually fits the narrative of what Plato wrote about, because Plato wrote that North Atlantis was destroyed 12,000 years ago, but there's a lot of historians say that it's not 12,000 years because the Egyptians didn't measure time in years, they measured time in lunar cycles. So if you go back to 12,000 lunar cycles, it brings it back to about 1500 BC or something. And it fits the narrative because there is a legend that North Africa actually went down 350 years and then came back up and was completely wiped out. That's why you've got the Sahara Desert in it. It's a desert, and the only reason you've got a desert there is because it was underwater. And there is an archaeologist that said that the Great Pyramids were underwater at one stage because he found some marine creatures on the Great Pyramid. And Egypt means risen land. And there's 2 Egypts too. There's North Egypt and South Egypt. And the old capital is actually way inland on the Nile.
Mhm.
It's yeah. Like you look at Egypt. Egypt has been completely destroyed. Like you look at all the Mediterranean, it's completely destroyed. It's either and all the way over to Samaria. It's all under all the ancient Sumerian cities are all under like meters of mud. They were dug out of mud. if you look at the old photos of when they dug them out back in the 1900s. The history is not what academics say, and I'm
So I
not.
hear.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm not
I
a like full-on researcher. There's a lot of people have done even better than stuff than me. But when you start looking at it, see, like the Mediterranean was landlocked, right? That was a valley, and then the water broke through at the Straits of Gibraltar and flooded the whole area. Now, when that happened, if that incident happened, which is pretty much certain because there is actual cities under the Mediterranean, that would have destroyed the whole of the Mediterranean, all the way over to Suma. Would have been destroyed. The Black Sea was actually landlocked, and they've proven that with core samples.
I do need to get to bed, but I appreciate
Yeah, okay.
the conversation, the information. This was very, very interesting. So peace for now.
See you, bro.
He's going to have some lucid dreams about crystal palaces when he goes to bed.